The chill that lingered before dawn always felt sharper in the riverlands, as though the river mist sought to flench warmth from bone and sinew alike. Within the quiet of his command tent, Robb Stark rose alone, unbuckling the leather straps that kept the fur of his cloak pinned tight about his shoulders. The brazier at the tent's heart held only embers now, their glow smothered beneath a thin scab of ash. He knelt, coaxed flame from cinder with the practiced flick of a steel, and listened to the camp breathe. The distant tromp of sentries changing posts, a cooked pot's faint bubble. Men snores tumbling over one another like hounds in restless sleep. Beyond the canvas walls, snow-gray dawn crawled up a cloudy sky, but inside all was ember-grurred and shadow-black. Gray wind watched him, molten eyes floating above the darkness near the entrance flap. The Duray wolf kept still, yet every beat of that great heart seemed ready to shatter the fragile hush. Robb met the beast's gaze. There was no timid love between them. Robb felt only the unity of two hunters who understood the world by smell and sinew. In battle, Gray wind moved as Robb's own will made manifest. Steel for teeth, thunder for paws. This morning, though, war demanded something subtler than teeth. Robb rose and pushed back the flap. Dawn greased the encampment in a dull pearlescence, tents mottled like pale seals bunched upon a pebbled riverbank. Men nodded to him as he strode the central path. Meg Mormont's green daughters cleaning axes outside their shelter. Distant Karstark bowmen stringing unhorned ewe with frost-stiff fingers. A stable boy rubbing sleep from his eyes, careful not to let the Carthers shy away when Gray wind padded past. Though Robb wore no crown of bronze or winter roses, men glimpsed their king when they looked upon him, and they granted passage accordingly. At the war council tent, the others awaited. Caitlin sat nearest the head of the rough-hewn table, half a dozen candles throwing lamplight across her auburn hair. Her fingers knotted restlessly through a length of writing twine, a gesture Robb had known since childhood. When Lady Caitlin worried, some small thing between her hands always bore the brunt. Grey John Umber loomed over her shoulder, one meaty fist clutching a joint of cold mutton. The other braced on the tabletop, as if he might overturn the maps should they displease him. Sir Brynden Blackfish studied the flicker of candle flames on his wine cup instead of the parchment. But Robb sensed his uncle missed no detail. Smalljan, Edmure, Galbart Glover, all showed the same tautness, a hush between breaths that made the tent feel smaller than its linen walls. Robb greeted them and took his seat. Gray wind settled at his heel, lowering his muzzle to the boards with a rumble. Sir Brynden spoke first. Ravens arrived an hour before dawn. He slid 2 parchment fragments forward, each seal cracked raw Jachazit, one from Widow's Watch, the other from Maester Coleman at River Run. Nay. Robb skimmed the Widow's Watch letter. Bolton banners sighted near the King's Road, raiding hamlets sworn to House Dustin. Half the north seemed to burn, yet none could spare men to stamp out the flames. The second message cut deeper. King's Landing demanded the Blackfish's head for treason. Edmure's imprisonment, Mother's charges of abduction against her own house. All set forth in a royal decree signed Joffrey Baratheon. Robb folded the parchments into his palm, knuckles blanching. It would be another move in the same grim game, pressuring loyalty by threatening hostages, swinging the sword of royal justice from courtly gallows. And he, Robb Stark, lacked armies enough to answer on every front. We cannot march on King's Landing. Caitlin broke the silence. Her voice lay steady over a vein of anger. Tywin holds Harrenhal, and the damned Lannisters raid the Trident every fortnight. If we break lines to ride for the capital, our rear will bleed out faster than the men can march. Grey John grunted. Then we sit, nipping at Lord Tywin's calves like curs. We need a strike no one expects, Robb replied, pushing the parchments back across the table. A dagger that passes beneath every helm and hauberk. One stroke, one that matters. His mind wandered to another letter. One he had unfolded alone many midnights. Sansa's hidden plea, smuggled past Lannister eyes by a kitchen girl who had risked the headsman's sword. Promises of rescue had always been words on parchment. The Trident remained between Robb and his sister. But there were other paths. He looked down at Grey Wind. The Duray wolf met his gaze, And for the barest instant, Robb felt the warm rush of full-brushed dreams, fleeting visions of crimson cloaks flaring like tulips in torchlight, of August stone corridors, drenched in the copper tang of fear. Whatever boundary parted man from wolf frayed, whenever Robb dreamed through Grey Wind's eyes. With practice he could hold such unions a breath longer each night. "A spy is what you mean," Sir Brynden said at last, brow furrowing. "A single blade behind their walls." "More than a spy," Robb murmured. "A shadow they cannot cage. Grey Wind can slip where men cannot, silent, unseen, and deadly. Let the Iron Throne learn northern vengeance has fangs." "Bah!" Caitlyn's twine snapped. "You speak of sending your own soul into the lion's den. Remember who else stalks those halls? Varys, Clyburn, Pyet, Pre, and stranger malices yet. What if the Queen's alchemists set traps only sorcery might sniff? What if some red priest, for the gods know Stannis courts them, feels the direwolf spirit?" Robb reached across the table, covering her hand. "Mother, I have led men to battles where spring melts snow with blood. If the cost of peace lies upon my shoulders, I will bear it." "Mamna 10. Spare speeches," growled Grachan. "How does a wolf cross half the realm without every dog raising hue and cry? By not traveling solely as a wolf." Robb unrolled a new map, one Maester Vyman had copied from the Citadel's old charts. It bore the secret threads of forgotten paths, smugglers' goat tracks traced through the neck, weirwood root tunnels said to breathe water like lungs, and whisper walls, hollowed deep beneath the Kingswood. We send Grey Wind with guides who know the wild passes. From Moat Cailin to the headwaters of the Blackwater Rush runs land too broken for knights. Small hunting parties slip through every season, poachers from Hayford, cutpurses fleeing crown laws. And even if men glimpse a wolf, whose tale will the Lannisters trust? A half-starved villager's drunken whisper, or the gold cloak who swears the city walls are tight as ever? Menisia. Sir Brynden traced a gnarled finger down the inked lines. "You mean to send scouts ahead, leaving fresh kills where he may feed. Leaving scents he recognizes." "Exactly." Robb folded the map. "We choose 6 of our best rangers. A fortnight for them to ride south through fields and fen, planting signs, burying salted venison. Then Grey Wind runs free. No man at his side draws suspicious eyes. No banners announce whose war he fights." He paused to steady his breath. "And once inside the walls, the target is the Boy King." A hush deeper than winter swallowed the tent. Even Grey Wind stilled, as though comprehending the gravity of that name. "To slay a king," Edmure said quietly, "invites 7-fold reprisal. To spare him is to watch the realm drown in his caprice," Robb answered. "I will not see Sansa chained for another Lannister whim. I will not allow Joffrey to butcher girls for sport." Caitlyn's eyes gleamed in the candlelight. She had bled tears for her daughters more nights than Robb dared count. Still, her voice betrayed only iron. "Kill Joffrey and the Queen will name you kinslayer as well as traitor. She will call for the head of every Stark on Westeros. You think there is wrath now? You have not known the true measure of a mother's vengeance." "Ningor Balin?" "A mother's vengeance," Robb echoed, "is what drives me." She flinched, the truth hitting like ice water down her nape, yet she did not withdraw her hand. Great John rapped the table with knuckles batter thick. "Then speak of warging, your grace. We have sorcery and wolf's wood tales, but little ken of its doings. Can you guide that beast all the way to the Red Keep, without misstep? Without him answering the call of some bitch in heat, or turning aside to chase deer?" Robb studied Grey Wind. "Each moon my bond with him grows stronger. Bran says the thrill of merging lasts longer every night. If a crippled boy can glimpse summer hunting in lands his never seen, I can walk with Grey Wind until I smell the dragonbone rooftops of Aegon City." "Bran is washed by Maester Luwin, a skeptic of any glamour," Catelyn said. "Someone must watch you too. I will not lose another son to forces I cannot fence. I will not be watched, but I will be anchored." Robb gestured to the Blackfish. "Uncle Brynden will guard my body while I ward. He has kept watch over rivers since before I was weaned." "Nanimo." The Blackfish sipped wine and nodded. "I have sat vigil over worse fates. Caitlin exhaled, ragged, and the argument fractured like thin ice underfoot. The decision, brittle though it was, settled upon the room. They discussed logistics until sun climbed higher. Asha Greyjoys, reavers scouring the coast, forced them to send their 6 rangers overland, rather than risk longboats. Rams of resin-soaked cedar would hide fresh meat within tree hollows. At dusk riders would slip south beneath false names. Goodman Pike, Sir Bor's brother Gil. Robb assigned Sir Robin Flint command, for the man's uncanny sense of direction in mist-swamped bogs. When talk turned at last to sleeping hours and guard rotations, Robb dismissed them. He emerged into a camp humming with midday life. Far banners cracked on ropes. Mormont bears, Glover gauntlets, a ragged direwolf upon gray for House Forrester. Yet the stark banner above all rippled bold and black in the winter wind, an omen of what Robb would unleash. 2 days later, under a hook-fingered waxing moon, Grey Wind's paws pressed first onto snow beyond the palisade watchfires. The 6 rangers knelt in a semicircle around Robb on the training yard's frozen turf, torches guttering low to hide their faces from prying sentries. Caitlin stood apart, near the shadow of the armory, her cloak pulled tight to mask whatever emotion might tremble across features carved from grief and will. Robb shed his cloak and sword belt, leaving only woolen shirt and breeches. He ran a gloveless hand along Grey Wind's spine, feeling muscle coil under the slate-gray pelt. "Run swift, Dot. Run silent," he whispered, though words between them mattered less than the moment their breaths mingled white against the cold. The rangers rose as one when Grey Wind padded out, each falling into loose flanks as though escorting a prince in silent procession. With every stride the direwolf grew smaller beneath the pine shadows until camp lamplight could no longer gild his fur. Then man and beast were swallowed by forest gloom. Only when the hush returned did Robb notice his mother's hand around his forearm, nails biting through cloth. "Anchor," she reminded him. Her voice carried both plea and command. "I shall." That night, Robb lay clothed on a pallet of furs inside his tent. Blackfish seated cross-legged beside him, sword unsheathed across Bryndon's knees. The elder knight spoke little. He simply rested a palm upon Robb's wrist to feel the quiet river of his pulse. Beyond the tent Robb sensed muffled drums of camp life, dice rattling in bowls, laughter flaring at crude jests. Yet those sounds receded as he closed his eyes and let thought unravel into whisker-quick sensation. The fall was never gentle. One moment he breathed human warmth and wool. The next he tore through undergrowth with a vigor no horse could match. Fur ruffled by night wind, scents carving paths before him. Half-remembered musk of elk, the electrifying rot of leaf decay, the distant flicker of campfire smoke faint as ember dust. He felt the invisible tug of the rangers ahead. Each man wore a scrap of wolfskin soaked in goat blood, an anchor to his senses. Grey Wind hurtled through coppice and bracken, silent save for whipped air. Trees blurred as brush parted, the world a strobing palette of black and silver streaks. Snow crust cracked under his weight, scattering ice shards like solar dust across dead leaves. He ran until dawn silvered the sky behind, and still no fatigue tethered him. Man's frailty slept somewhere north of the wall. Here, within the direwolf, endurance ran thick as marrow. When day lifted pale and wan above frost-slicked plains, Grey Wind slowed near a fallen oak, its hollow trunk stuffed with salted hair and rabbit lungs. The rangers had done their work. He feasted, tearing flesh in wet chunks, relishing new strength, singing into limbs. Sated, he padded south again, leaving crimson spatters behind that raven soon discovered. Robb stirred faintly within the direwolf's skull, memory surfacing with a swirl like sediment above streamed stone. Bran's teachings under Hodor's patient watch. The way summer listened to water, the way shaggy dog tempered madness with shivering ecstasy. "Stay alert," Bran's voice warned, "for if you sink too deep, the beast will consume the boy entire." Robb felt that risk each time Grey Wind's bloodlust surged. Yet an answering flame in his chest, pride, burned any fear to ash. He did not merely ride Grey Wind. He guided him, checked him, shaped purpose from instinct. As afternoon wings into evening, sense shifted. limestone tang ripe with bat guano, the sharp memory of salt blowing off distant waters. They skirted a hamlet burned months ago by Gregor Clegane's riders. Ash ghosts drifted pale on the breeze, and charred beams jutted like snapped ribs from the ground. No living souls remained, yet Grey Wind nosed blackened bone shards with a low keen of anger before loping on. Memory's ghosts hatched rage in his belly, but Robb quelled it. They could not afford delays or hunts for spectral enemies. Each night they ran thus, through briar-thick dells, along creek beds crusted in rime, across meadows where the wind laid grasses flat in waves. Robb slept when Grey Wind rested, lying curve-limbed beneath hawthorn thickets, while the rangers kept watch from afar, listening to the Deroval's slow breathing, as though it were winter tide upon shore. They never approached, mindful that men seen too near might unravel the plan. Instead they marked progress on small flaps of cloth, tied to sapling branches. Pale gray for safe, crimson for threat. Grey Wind sniffed each and wove his path accordingly. Past Moat Cailin ruins. They slipped beneath watchtowers manned by uneasy sellswards who mistook Grey Wind's silhouette for some swamp-fed shadowcat. No alarm rose that the North's king had trespassed them in spirit. They crossed the neck's watery waste where wilhois yisps bobbled above peat hummocks, and Robb felt, with sudden sharpness, the ancient gaze of the children of the forest. Something old and wordless brushed against Grey Wind's mind, an invitation perhaps, or a warning. And with a shudder he urged the beast on through moonlit reed beds. By the 12th day, they reached the fringe of the Kingswood, a sprawling labyrinth of oak and alder, hugging the southern flank of Blackwater's mouth. Here, the rangers parted ways. 2 would circle east to Lightfall's campfires and draw out crowned scouts. 3 would fade north, along the old Rosby Trail, to mislead any who tracked De Wolf prints. One alone, Sir Robin Flint, remained hidden far to Grey Wind's rear, ready to renew meat caches should the assault take longer than hoped. Once the final ranger left, Grey Wind entered a realm of solitude. Only Robb, the beast, and the forest's ageless breath. Within the Kingswood, every shadow whispered of legends. Rain slain by dragons, kings hunted by poets' arrows, bastard sons of Storm's End playing outlaw, beneath green leaf canopy. Grey Wind's passage stirred none of these echoes. He was a ghost among ghosts. He drank from cool streams, his reflection a silver smear distorted by moonlight. He listened to owls' voice secrets overhead, while through him, Robb felt each hoot like punctuation in a cipher. Hold, hush, hurry. The city lay close enough that its lights smudged the horizon to a bruised glow. Its stench, tallow smoke, human sweat, spiced fish aging badly, drifted faint on night breezes. Soon Grey Wind would slip across the mudflats of the Blackwater Rush, scale the sewers, and prowl the rookery roofs. Soon, but not yet. Robb knew patience would break, or forge the plan. He spent 3 nights pacing Kingswood Fringe to memorize shifts of guard patrols along the lower wall. From the De Wolf's vantage, the moat and bastion, turrets looked like a jagged half-moon of stone carving darkness. Dogs patrolled the postern gate. A dozen rangy curs collared in gold studs. Grey Wind crouched high upon a bluff, while Robb watched them sniff the ground, their hackles stiff with territorial zeal. A single ripple of savagery curled through Grey Wind. He longed to leap, jaws gaping. Robb reined him in. A half a dozen bodies torn near the wall would trumpet a warning louder than any warhorn. Instead, he studied rhythm. Every dog's route overlapped another at certain points, a narrow triangular gap between torch posts where, for perhaps 3 heartbeats each cycle, no canine nose swept the loam. There the De Wolf might creep unseen. No sewers for him. The postern gap would be his prologue. On the 4th night, clouds smothered the moon, lights along the city walls dimmed behind sleety mist, and the wind shifted to blow shoreward, carrying with it the brine stench of rotting fish heads. It was time. Grey Wind bounded down the bluff, paws silent upon mulch. At the wall's base, moss-cloaked stones rose sheer, but a half-collapsed buttress provided stepping holds where ivy roots delved for mortar. He climbed, The wall dog patrol passed below, torches bobbing, curses muttered at the foul night. Gray wind pressed flat, ribs brushing stone, fur slick with drizzle. When the last dog vanished round a corner, he sprang onto the parapet. His landing made no noise. Claws gripped lichen with surgical precision. Ahead lay a watchtower door left ajar in the wind's push. Within he smelled two men. Guards playing tiles by lantern light, minds dulled by boredom. Gray wind slunk past the threshold, breath a ghost against cold air. Robb felt his own heart thunder in distant flesh, but the Dure wolf's pulse remained steady. A hunter's calm. He padded down the turret stair, emerging into a narrow corridor of rush-strewn stone floors. Torches hissed low on iron brackets. No guards wandered this lesser-used causeway near the granaries. Gray wind followed scents of grain dust to a grill that opened upon a deserted courtyard stacked with empty barrels. Across that courtyard, a stable door moaned as storm squalls teased its hinges. Beyond lay the inner city. A single leap cleared the grill. Another padded stride crossed open space. He sniffed the door. Horse sweat, dung, hay. Inside, hoofbeats thudded. A sleepy groom hummed to calm, restive mounts. Gray wind's hackles rose. Horses spooked easily, and their screams might wake half the Red Keep. Stealth was paramount. He skirted the stable wall instead, seeking a drainage channel where rainwater sluiced from courtyard to lower levels. Iron bars capped it, but one rusted hinge sagged just enough for a lean wolf to press through. The channel reeked. Slops from kitchens above, moldering straw, stale ale. Gray wind waded the dank crawl space, until it widened into an underground cistern, large enough for oxen carts. Here, torchlight flickered dim through grates overhead, fracturing across oily water like fractured suns. He shook droplets from his coat. Robb, inhabiting, tasted black rot on the air and swallowed hard. Somewhere above, the keep's corridors bustled. Footsteps and distant laughter filtered down as muffled drumming. They were inside. An hour passed in tense stillness, Robb guiding Gray wind through echoing tunnels, mapped only in rumor. He sought the vault aperture Bran had once glimpsed by Raven vision, a secret shaft climbing behind the Queen's septarium, leading almost to Maegor's holdfast. Rumor said rats fat as cats feasted on grain tribute that spilled there from tithe wagons. If such a shaft existed, the Dure wolf could scale it, claws finding purchase in crumbly brick. Robb navigated by draft and scent, pressing always toward rising air and sweetening chill. He fought the biological urge to cough when wine fumes drifted. Cellars near. At last the passage narrowed where older stonework met new. A broken water wheel jutted from brackish depths, spokes rotten. Above, bricks formed an uneven ladder swallowed by gloom. Gray wind climbed, hind legs bunching like springs. Robb felt each claw-bite mortar, a silent counting of heartbeats until the shaft spilled into blackness. He emerged into a storeroom stacked with grain sacks. Moonlit sheens slit through high arrow slits, pale enough that dust motes glittered like newborn stars. No guard, only soft rustle of flower beetles. Robb allowed Gray wind a moment's pause, chest heaving. They had pierced nearly to the keep's marrow. Now the truly perilous hunt would begin. Sniffing out Joffrey's path, measuring scent trails among dozens of courtiers, guards, servants. Every step now threaded the eye of fate's needle. Robb withdrew his spirit then, dizzy, severing the tether so suddenly Gray wind staggered a breath before regaining primal autonomy. Robb's consciousness snapped back into his body at River Run's distant camp, gasping. Drenched in sweat though icy night air lapped his brow. The blackfish pressed water to his lips. "How far?" the old knight asked. "Inside," Robb rasped. "He walks beneath the lion's den." Caitlin entered, candle trembling. In her eyes burned terror and awe. She saw her son returned from a realm men were not meant to stride. He clasped her hand, palm sticky where she once clutched twine. "I am here," he whispered, though part of him still hovered in that grain-scented storeroom, feeling foreign stone chill the pads of a deerwolf's paws. He slept then, but lightly, each dream a mirror of Gray wind's wandering. He scented lavish carpets, heavy with incense, past servants' ankles, skittering along candle-lit halls. He glimpsed great iron-bound doors behind which echoed shrill laughter. Joffrey's, unmistakable as frostbite. Yet still more corridors to chart, more schedules to learn. Killing a king too soon might rouse the city before Sansa could be whisked clear, before ravens could fly north to tell allies the deed was done. Timing, like patience, would decide victory. So began the silent siege. One wolf among prey, his paw steps ghosting through torched arches, while above him golden banners drooped from battlements, oblivious to doom threading nearer with each panting breath. And within his tent, far away, Robb Stark clenched a fist in restless dreams, guiding teeth toward a future that glimmered red with possibility. In the morning, he would waken to fresh reports of Lannister thrusts along the Tumblestone, of Bolton's slitting throats near Hornwood. The war would churn as ever. Yet beneath that swirl of banners and blood, a quieter campaign advanced fang by fang. The Wolf assassin had breached the Red Keep. The game of kings would soon learn a new rule, one written not with ink nor blade but with the silent crush of jaws closing around destiny's throat. Yeah, Eshim. The rain that drifted across King's Landing that night was the soft, whispering sort. More mist than storm, yet thick enough to blur torchlight and hush the restless hubbub of tavern alleys. It wreathed the Red Keep spires so completely that from the Blackwater quays the castle resembled a monolithic mountain whose summit dissolved into clouds. Within those walls, Grey Wind moved, like a wraith distilled from that very vapor, his coat beaded with droplets that glittered whenever a stray lantern beam strayed across him. Robb rode behind those eyes again, anchored to the dire wolf's senses by a thread so taut it sang in his ears. Each time he slipped into Grey Wind the world changed. Colors lost their human warmth, sharpening into a spectrum of scents rather than hues. Myrrh, wood smoke, cold steel, damp linen, the coppery bite of old blood. These were fragments of a great mosaic that told Robb where he stood better than any map. And he knew now that the storeroom where they crouched lay beneath Maegor's hold-fast kitchens, for he smelled larded boar crackling on iron spits above, onions softening in goose fat, lavender crushed into sweet wine. He tasted them on the back of the wolf's tongue and felt a savage pang of hunger, but held it in check. Instinct must yield to purpose. They waited until the change of watch, 2 hours past moonrise, when scullions toted barrel staves to rake ash from the great hearths, and sleepy guards stamped cold feet behind the servants' door. Through cracks in the timbers, Robb counted 3 men. 2 gold cloaks bearing idle halberds, 1 pot-bellied kitchen sergeant, balancing a jug of small ale on his hip. They shared a jest about a Dornish girl, bent over a flour sack, laughter rolling thick as clotted cream. The sergeant tipped his jug for each in turn before ambling back into the heat and candle glow, leaving the guards to sip dregs and curse the damp. When their mailed backs turned, Grey Wind slipped from shadow to shadow, a sliding ripple in the dark. Robb felt every tendon flex beneath the pelt, pulling in perfect silence until they reached the egress. A latched sally door sized for coal haulers. One push of the nose raised the latch, a steady nudge parted the gap, and they flowed into a corridor dank with spice and lye. Here lamplight pooled in puddles on stone and voices echoed thunder loud. They crept, ears flicking to trace every footfall and cough. Rat squeals burst from chaff sacks. Somewhere above, the queen's handmaidens giggled at a bawdy rhyme as they towel-dried Myrcella's hair. Robb marked their position not for cruelty, but caution. If Grey Wind passed beneath their floorboards, they might sense the beast's presence in a chill gust and shriek. Down another stair they padded, through a wine storeroom where casks towered like squat giants. Candles flickered on wall niches, painting rows of crimson seals with sinuous shadows. Robb allowed Grey Wind a moment's stillness to smell each cask. Oak savored, cedar long-aged, Dornish red, that smelled of summer heat, baked into dusty vines. One barrel bore the sigil of red wine. Sansa had loved red wine arbor gold at Winterfell feasts, a bittersweet recollection that flared in Robb's chest like a forged spark. For her. The refrain steadied his will. Beyond that vault lay the service passage rumored in Maester Vyman's copies. a narrow way used only when boy King Aegon IV demanded midnight sweets. Robb found it exactly where scrawlings promised, hidden behind a shutter disguised as a wine rack. Hinges whined, but gray winds, bulk pressed the rack shut again before the squeal could travel. They ghosted down the secret stair, spiraling upward rather than descent, and each pace carried them closer to the palace's beating heart. On the landing above, torches hissed within iron sconces shaped like roaring dragons. Painted panels lined the corridor, Valerian dragons coupling mid-air, crowned kings raising swords above subjugated Westerosi lords. The warrior of the Seven slitting the throat of the stranger death. Robb glimpsed those memories only as flashes, gray wind's gaze fixed upon movement. Ahead, a lone page toddled along with a pewter ewer of rosemary water. He hummed softly, lost in reverie. Gray wind stilled, body coiled low like a spring. Robb's pulse hammered. It would take but a single bound to tear open the boy's throat, quick, efficient, leaving silence. But the page was no Lannister nor guard. He was a child. The dire wolf stilled. Robb turned gray wind into a walnut carved deep, beneath a snarling lion mask. The page waddled by, song fading round a bend. Only then did gray wind slink forth. The restraint cost him. Hunger sharpened to pain. Robb's stomach lurched in his sleeping flesh miles away. Yet self-command was the difference between assassin and beast. He would not betray Ned Stark's teachings for animal need. At corridor's end rose a cedar door bound in bronze bands. Robb listened. No jangling keys, no brash bootsteps. He nudged it open. A small godswood garden spread beyond. The same pocket square of green, glimpsed by Bran's raven dreams. A single heart tree thrived there, transplanted from the north long ago. Its weeping face pale in torch glow. Every leaf glittered wet, each branch bowed with rain. At its foot squatted a stone bench where once, rumor claimed, King Baelor the Blessed knelt in prayer. Tonight it cradled something else. A girl, slender, copper-haired, cloaked in a shawl too thin for night damp. Sansa. The wolf's nostrils flooded with her scent. Winter roses and grief, tears unshed. Robb felt the recognition pierce gray wind's heartbeat like daylight flooding a cave. She did not see him yet, for she sat half-turned away, fingers clasped before her, as though in silent plea to old gods, new gods, any that would listen. He dared not step closer. To reveal a dire wolf here might undo a year's worth of caution. Yet to leave her unaware seemed a cruelty. Gray wind crouched within the archway, paw lifting. He let out a sound, not quite a whimper, not growl. Something between, inquisitive, soft as leaf fall. Sansa's head snapped up. Her eyes widened, blue haunted by torch glare. For an instant, terror wrote itself upon her face. Dire wolves were dead, slain with father, with lady. But then her breath hitched recognition. She whispered a broken name. Gray wind. Tears welled. She pressed a fist to lips to cage a sob. Robb's heart shattered. He wanted to speak, to tell her he lived, that rescue glimmered near. But a wolf's throat cannot shape words. Gray wind lowered his head, ears flat, tail sweeping once against wet grass in pledge. Her shoulders shook. She looked skyward as if to beg the moon's witness to this impossible apparition. Footsteps clacked behind. A court lady's voice droned idle gossip. Talk of Queen Margaery's rumored gowns, of silver thread imported from Lys. Gray wind vanished into vine-clad gloom before Sansa or the intruder could speak. The garden door eased shut, and Robb pulled back, shuddering through two beating hearts. Her whispered hope echoed in both chests now. Gray winds, and the body lying in Riverrun's battle tent. Hope and peril. For if she spoke of this sighting to the wrong ears, Lannister spies would piece it swiftly together. The game now teetered on the edge of a blade thinner than a spider's silk. He paced the corridor, hunt quiet until footsteps faded. Then, up another flight, drawn by the sour musk of boyish sweat and washed leathers. Joffrey. 2 turns later, Gray wind crouched above the throne room's antechamber, peering down a stone service shaft grated by iron bars. Through gaps he saw golden sconces blazing upon marble floor. Tyrell musicians tuning lutes for dawn's court. Farther on, up curved stairs, lay the king's personal solar. Joffrey seldom slept before dawn. Rumors said he preferred hours when he might wander corridors unchaperoned to play at war with mousers and stable pups. Robb poised the beast on that staircase landing, nose twitching for the king's particular stench. Clove oil, talc, arrogance. And then from above, the patter of hurried sandals. A maester's voice muttered about moon tea delivered for the queen regent. Another chance to learn habits, rhythms. Robb filed each whisper away, timing the strike, demanded encyclopedic knowledge. But tonight would not be that night. He must retreat and weave a path for Sansa first. Gray wind retraced steps through warren passages, mapping each torch niche and loose flagstone. He marked a low, arched sally port near the laundry cisterns. Unguarded, venting steamy air heavy with lye. Servants ferried linens there at dawn, but twilight hours remained vacant. A slim girl could slip out with a bundle of sheets and vanish into streets beyond. Exit for Sansa Darball. He withdrew again, this time seeking the outer wall. Beyond the laundry cellars, Grey Wind located a rusted grate through which warm waste water emptied into the dried moat. One good heave of jaw could wrench its bracket loose. Robb stored the maneuver for later. Then, the dire wolf retreated fully, melting through kitchens just as first scullions arrived to stoke fires. Dawn's pallor tinged windows. If he remained, day crowds would trap him. He reached the first gatehouse, as rooster crows cracked the sky. There, a stable door swung wide for baker's deliveries, and a mule cart clattered in. Beneath its wagon bed sagged rag bundles of trampled straw, space enough for a lean predator. Grey Wind slipped under, belly scraping damp clay, and clung silent to the axle as the cart creaked out again toward the fish market. Mud spattered his coat, masking dire scent. Gate guards barely glanced down. Dawn's laziness dulled vigilance. Beyond King's Landing sprawled a cart rattled into fog-veiled fields where cabbage patches clung to winter soil. Grey Wind rolled free, loped for the Kingswood fringe, and vanished beneath boughs, just as light broke fully. Robb seared every path, scent, guard, face into memory. Then he called himself back to River Run. Staggering upright from his bedroll, Brynden Tully gripped his shoulders until the world steadied. "Did you find her?" he asked. "I saw Sansa," Robb murmured. "She lives. She knows we are near." He drank long from a water skin, throat raw dada. "Now, we must plan extraction." 3 nights later, under a crescent moon, the Rangers began Phase 2 with Doi. They had waited along the Rosby Trail for Grey Wind's sign, shredded hair guts draped on a birch limb. That gore told them the wolf had infiltrated and withdrawn. Sir Robin Flint dispatched 2 riders, north disguised as peddlers to relay success. The remaining 4 men donned ragged septon cloaks and filtered into King's Landing one by one. A beggar with twisted foot, a kettle singer missing 3 fingers, a hedge knight stripped of spurs, and a tooth-drawn sellsword. Each bore hidden in boot heels black steel wire, vials of poppy, coins minted in White Harbor to bribe timid gateboys. Their task: prepare Sansa's escape at the laundry drain while Grey Wind prowled as guardian shadow. Robb sank into the wolf each evening to watch them move. He saw the hedge knight, Galbart Glover in truth, befriend washerwomen at the East Market, swapping flirts for gossip. He watched the beggar, Glover's cousin Harwood, feign fever near Maegor's holdfast until servants gifted him bread from their own trays. Each crumb of trust, each idle chat, widened the cracks in Lannister vigilance. Yet the city itself resisted intrusion like a body raising fever. Queen Cersei had grown paranoid since Stannis' shadow assassins. Gold cloaks drilled longer, new lantern lines lit narrow stairs, and Queen Marguerite's ladies dotted corridors like doves, but listened as hawks. Rumor spoke of a foreign sorcerer too. Keyburn's purchased from the ailing brave companions, who steeped strange black liquor in copper stills beneath the rookery. Robb sensed these nets tightening, and the need for precision sharpened. On the 12th night after Grey Wind's first breach, all threads drew taut. The wolf crouched upon the kitchen's copper-grate rooftop, eyes set on the godswood garden gate, where Sansa slipped nightly seeking solace. Tonight she came again, wearing a thicker cloak of gray lamb's wool, hood shadowing her face. She carried a small packet. Within, Robb saw the gleam of a thin-bladed cheese knife and a folded parchment sealed in wax. She knelt by the heart tree, whispering so faintly even Gru Wind's keen ears barely caught it. "Old gods, if you hear me, let me be brave." Then she rose and pressed the parchment into a knot hollow at the tree's base. A message for him, no doubt, trusting some unseen spirit to deliver. Robb's throat tightened. He willed Grey Wind down. A flicker of motion in vines drew her gaze. She gasped softly as the wolf emerged. He patted half the distance, paused, lowered head. Gentle. She forced herself to breathe. "Can you understand me?" Her voice trembled. He inclined muzzle. She whispered, "I will go to the laundries at second moonrise 2 nights hence. If Father's gods still watch, send me a sign." She fetched the packet. "Take this to whoever guides you." She knelt, extending trembling hand. In her palm lay a braid of her own hair, coiled like autumn chestnut silk, bound by silver ribbon, proof of her will. Grey Wind stepped forward. His warm breath stirred the strands. Delicately he seized the braid between teeth. Their eyes locked, hers burning with terror and fierce hope, his reflecting torchfire like molten amber. For one moment, they were brother and sister in shared exile. A clatter of hobnails shattered it. Guard patrol. Sansa turned, terror wrenching her features. Grey Wind slid back, vanished into hedge gloom, braid secure. She pivoted, feigning piety before the heart tree, as 3 Lannister spearmen marched in. The captain frowned. "Lady Sansa, the queen bids you retire." She bowed her head in subservience, so convincing even Robb's breath stilled. The captain's eyes searched shadows but saw nothing. He escorted her out. Grey Wind waited until their steps faded, then fled through vent tunnels into night. Back at camp, Robb pressed the braid into Catelyn's hands. Mother touched the hair as though it were Valyrian steel. Tears slid unchecked, but there would be time to weep later. They convened war council by the dying fire. Sir Brynden spread a crude charcoal diagram of the Red Keep drains. 2 nights hence we draw her out the laundry sluice, then flee under false merchant baggage. Greyjohn nodded. 1 wagon, 2 mules, no more. Too many bodies slow us. Once she is clear we strike, Robb said. Joffrey D's before dawn. Catelyn flinched. If you fail, I will not, Robb answered. Silence. Then she drew steel. Before any could question, she cut a thin line across her palm and let the blood drip onto the wolf's braid. For my daughter, she vowed quietly. Robb repeated the cut across his own hand, mingling their blood on the dying embers. Smoke coiled, carrying oath to night sky. The penultimate day dawned bleak with hammering rain. King's Landing streets became rivers of ochre mud choked with straw and horse ordure. Refugees crowded at Mud Gate, pleading for stale bread. Amidst them Harwood the beggar slipped unseen, dropping coppers to desperate mothers, feeding rumor that some night soon the gates might open to mercy shipments. The hedge knight listened in taverns where sellswords boasted of new work patrolling the Blackwater banks, paid double hazard for fear of shadowcats prowling the night. All good. Fears of beasts kept eyes outward, not inward. At dusk, Galbart moved first. He hired a dung hauler cart, the most wretched conveyance imaginable, reeking so foul even Goldcloaks pinched noses rather than search it thoroughly. Hide slung over the bin would muffle any sound. He arranged a meet with the washerwoman, Mathilde. Promising silver for every bundle of wet linen she dragged out that night. The washerwoman was poor, childless, and harboring secret loathing for Lannister soldiers who mocked her crooked back. Silver bought secrecy. Midnight came. Robb sank once more. Grey Wind flowed over the Kingswood bluff, timed the dog gap, climbed the broken buttress. He paused only briefly beneath a corbel to yank the rusted drain grate from its mount. Iron screeched, too loud. He froze. A guard up on the parapet coughed but did not peer over. Rain muffled noise. Good. He wedged the grate aside and darted inside. In the laundry hall, the air smelled of hot tallow, damp wool, lye tang harsh enough to sting nostrils. Mathilde wrestled steaming sheets into a basket. Gray wind kept to pillars, a silent sentinel. Minutes crawled. Then Sansa arrived, flanked by 2 Tyrell maids and a gold cloak escort yawning into his collar. She bore a small bundle. Your lady mother requests these gowns be laundered before tomorrow, she said, voice brittle. Mathilde curtsied. The maids fussed over stain removers while the guard ogled bosoms. Gray wind measured angles. Outside the sluice tunnel, Galbart waited with his dung cart. Harwood hid beneath, dagger drawn. Sansa lingered near the furnace until the maid's chatter rose. She lifted a sheet, stepped behind it, and vanished like a ghost. Gray wind slipped lateral to intercept. He glimpsed her stooping to lift a drain panel at floor's edge, the hidden way he'd marked. She dropped silently, knees splashing into ankle-deep hot water. Lantern gleam caught her pale cheek, set tears sparkling. Gray wind padded to the grate's lip, blocking view as she wormed feet foremost into the crawl. Steam swirled. Soldier still yawned. Mathilde deliberately toppled a basket, linens exploding across flagstones. Maid squealed, soldier cursed. In that chaos, Sansa slid fully into darkness. Gray wind covered her scent by rolling through spilled lye water, pungent tang cloaking wolf musk. He then bounded past the maids, jaws snapping at nothing. A sudden apparition that sent them screaming. The soldier lunged. Gray wind swerved, leading him in a panic chase toward the kitchens. Robb guided him through scullery piles, overturning platters, tripping apprentices. Pandemonium erupted. No one noticed when a laundry drain bolted shut again. Satisfied, Gray wind vaulted through a servant's postern and vanished into rain-slick courtyard. Paws thudded mud until he crested the outer wall and slipped away into Kingswood gloom. Beneath the keep, Sansa crawled through steaming runoff, guided by faint torch glow ahead where Harwood waited, arm reaching. She sobbed once as he hauled her into the cart's fetid pit. Hides flopped over. The dung hauler clucked mules onward, just as Goldcloaks raised alarms for a loose dire wolf. They looked every direction but at the reeking wagon trundling calmly out the mudgate. Task 1. Complete. In River Run tent, Robb gasped away. Brynden wiped sweat from his brow. Is she free? He asked. Past the gates. Robb swung to feet despite dizziness. Now the wolf hunts. He warged again without pause. Back into gray wind, loping toward restored buttress. Rain eased to drizzle. City walls loomed, torches blazing with new urgency. Horns brayed. Beast in the keep echoed from ramparts. Good. Panic still aimed outward. Gray wind scaled, slipped, recovered, ears flattening to duck arrow knocks. One guardsman loosed shot. The shaft clattered stone. Wolf vanished into embrasure, down sewer vent. He scented blood and steel, adrenaline sour like spoiled milk. Soldiers brandishing spears along corridors now. Robb steered him through laundry hall chaos lit by overturned braziers. Maids shrieked to high heavens. Soldiers milled. No one saw the dark blur terminating onto the stair for royal apartments. Robb followed remembered passage to Joffrey's solar. 2 Kingsguards stood at the door, rain-soaked cloaks discarded for mail mantles. Ser Meryn Trant yawned behind helm cheeks. Sir Osmund Kettleblack scratched crotch. They complained about wolf stories and lack of sleep. Gray wind crouched around a corner, nose mapping breeze. The solar's opposite wall shared a garderobe shaft dropping direct to the moat. Robb guided the wolf up an adjacent gallery, along a balcony cluttered with dusty busts, until he reached the garderobe lintel. A recessed arrow loop beside it let a lean animal squeeze behind hangings into the chamber beyond. Joffrey's bedchamber. Inside, torchlight pooled ruby on tapestries, depicting Targaryen dragons. At bed center sprawled Joffrey in silk chemise, snoring open-mouthed. A northern wind gusted through shutter cracks, frosting candle flame. It tugged bed curtains just enough for gray wind to slip beneath. Robb felt adrenaline slam him like hammer blow. He controlled breathing, measured pawful. Joffrey's scent filled nostrils. Sour wine, lavender sake, faint meat of roast capon. The boy king's throat lay pale above gilt collar. One clamp of jaw would end him before breath's next measure. But Robb did not lunge. Instead, he sat upon haunches, forcing Wolf to wait, to watch. He remembered father's teaching. A Stark must look into the eyes of the man he kills. Through Wolf's sight he would do so. He breathed once, twice. Then he sent a silent command, and gray wind growled low. A rumble from Earth's depths. Joffrey jerked awake. Yellow candle glow met amber wolf eyes. The boy king froze, disbelief contorting his face. He opened his mouth. No sound, only a breathy squeak. Gray wind advanced a step. Joffrey's hand darted aside, groping for the lion-pommeled dagger always kept near. Wolf's teeth flashed. The dagger scraped side table. Too late. Gray wind lunged but not to kill. Jaws clamped Joffrey's forearm instead, crushing bone. The king screamed, high-pitched terror. The wolf tore flesh. Jerked head to fling dagger across room. Then he released and bounded back. Joffrey's shrieks shattered corridors. Guards collided through door. Wolf retreated under bed, slashed at ankles. Sir Meryn roared, hacking wildly. A quilt ignited on candle. Smoke billowing. Confusion swamped defense. Robb guided gray wind through second arrow loop behind bed, dropping to garderobe platform. Slippery stone chute angled steep to moat. He dove nose first, claws scraping porcelain. Foul stench enveloped as he slid, landed into night drizzle outside wall. Above, horns brayed again. Assassin, king harmed. Joffrey lived, wounded, frightened. Let his terror rattle the regime. Let rumors bloom that the North's vengeance prowled palace halls unbound by gates or blades. But Robb still owed the realm one death. He turned the wolf toward Tower of the Hand. On upper floors, Tywin Lannister lit candles to read dispatches deep into night. Killing 2 lions in one night would upturn the war entire. Yet window grates there were stout, guards many. Risk soared. And Robb sensed exhaustion in Grey Wind's limbs. Successive wargs drained them both. He chose instead Pycelle. Grand Maester Pycelle, who penned lies to justify Ned Stark's arrest, who doctored ravens to sow false fealty, who whispered sweet venom in the boy king's ear. His apartments lay along the rookery stairs, guarded by but one sleepy novice. Gray wind climbed weather-pocked walls to rookery ledge. Ravens fluttered frantic, quills clacked. The novice boy stumbled out, lantern swaying. He glimpsed eyes amid feathers, shrieked, lost nerve, fled downward, calling for guards. By the time footsteps echoed back, Gray wind had slipped inside Pycelle's chamber. The old man slept half-nude beneath bearskin, gray beard spilled like sea drift. He stirred as cold paw touched tile. What? Was all he uttered before fangs crushed his windpipe. A single jerk snapped vertebrae. Silence settled. Robb stared through wolf eyes at the corpse, felt no triumph, only grim equilibrium. A debt paid. Minutes later, Gray wind leapt from rookery parapet onto lower rooftop. Tumbled, caught stride, vanished into Keep Labyrinth one last time. He exited by laundry sluice, found Rosby Trail where Galbart's dung cart awaited. The wolf bounded onto tailgate, curled among straw as cart lurched south for secret ferry cross Blackwater. Sun-edged horizon bloody and gold when they reached Kingswood. Their Robb drew spirit back and let Gray wind run free under pine canopy. Sansa arrived at Robb's war camp 7 days later, escorted by Harwood, Galbart, and a dozen Karstark outriders collected en route. When she slid from saddle, Robb seized her in arms that once flung snowballs at her skirts. She sobbed against his chest. He felt ribs thin as birdcage slats. Catelyn wept openly. Gray wind padded close, muzzle brushing Sansa's hand. She knelt, buried fingers in fur, whispered thanks that stirred even the wolf's stoic pulse. That night banners held high while councils raged. Joffrey's mauled arm festered, rumors of black sorcery spread. Pycelle found dead with throat torn as though by demon. Cersei ran it about northern devils. She doubled the bounty on Robb Stark's head, yet half her court whispered that no wall could hold back winter's wrath. Robb listened, silent, as reports trickled. He knew his war had shifted. No longer merely armies versus armies. Terror itself now served the North. Terror on padded paws and silent breath. But victory demanded patience still. He studied maps beside Sansa. She traced supply routes gleaned from cup-bearers and made gossip. He planned raids to sever capital grain. He drafted letters offering safe pardon to Riverlord houses wavering under Tywin's gold. And each dusk he walked with Grey Wind beyond Palisade to breathe fresh snow air and feel Earth's tremor of coming change. Far to the south, Queen Cersei fortified Maegor's Holdfast, sealed windows in steel lattice, ordered wildfire caches triple. Joffrey refused to sleep without 4 King's Guard encircling bed, torches blazing all night. Pycelle's death left the court physicianless. Potions fermented unmeasured. Wounds went septic. Fear weakens, Robb thought. Steel kills, but dread unmans. One evening, Sansa took his arm beside the campfire. "Did you guide him?" she asked softly, nodding toward Grey Wind. "Yes." "Then when he stood by the bed, that was you too." "In part." She stared at flames. "I should hate killers," she whispered. "But I hated him more." Robb said nothing. War had carved out pieces of them both. She reached, squeezed his hand. "Thank you for sending our fathers justice." He bowed head, accepting weight of those words. Winter's edge crept south apace. Night frosts lingered longer. Crow calls carried farther. Robb moved host north of River Run, baiting Tywin to leave Harrenhal. Each day scouts returned with tales. Lannister outriders skittish at every grove, claiming phantom wolves culled pickets, carving throats then melting. Sometimes Grey Wind was truly there. Other times mere fear conjured him. Either served. But a new threat rose. Roose Bolton, holding Harrenhal by Lannister leave, sent envoys offering terms to Robb, dismal, insulting. The phrase, King Crow, marked parchment. Clear sign of treachery soon. Robb decided the old bloody mummers must be turned loose to sow chaos within those battlements. Yet before striking, he sought counsel in dream with Bran, through Wolf's Song. Crossleague Summer answered, his howl threading starshine. From that astral exchange, Robb gleaned wisdom. Treachery thrives where fear rules. So deeper dread and traitors reveal themselves. He sent Grey Wind to stalk Bolton camps, tearing banners, leaving slain kennel hounds, silent warnings. Within weeks, Bolton men muttered of curses and rebelled. Harrenhal descended into mutiny. Tywin rode to subdue them, abandoning King's Landing. The Golden Lion left city vulnerable. Stannis, emboldened, massed fleet at Dragonstone once more. Ravenclaw begged alliance. The board reshuffled. And always the legend grew. Shadow Wolf assassin, harbinger of winter. Small folk prayed to the weirwoods, begging mercy from North's vengeance. Robb let story swell, it served him. But he reminded Grey Wind nightly. We are not demons. We are guardians. Wolves hunt that the pack may thrive. One dawn, as ravens screamed above, Sansa approached the heart tree transplanted to their temporary camp. Catelyn had insisted on planting a sapling weirwood for prayer. She knelt, stroked gray bark. Will the war ever end? Robb joined her. A storm passes, a pack endures. Behind them, Grey Wind lifted snout, sniffing east where sun birthed crimson over fields. A color not unlike blood, but also dawn. He loosed a howl that rolled across river and dale, neither mournful nor savage. It rang of warning, of promise, of winter hearts beating despite the thaw. In distant capital halls, Queen Regent and crippled king flinched at phantom echoes. They barricaded gates, spiked every sewer. Yet no moat stops a legend. Fear had breached their walls long before steel, and even wildfire burns out. Robb Stark, king in the north, turned southward gaze one last time. He thought of father, of Ned's head bowed on Baelor's steps, and felt the weight of justice yet undone. Grey Wind pressed flank to his knee. Sansa rose to stand with him. Around them banners unfurled, dire wolves roaring silent across morning breeze. The pack had grown, and winter's fangs were bared. A final campaign beckoned, not merely for thrones nor vengeance, but to restore a realm devoured by cruelty. They would march under Shadow Wolf's omen, hearts steeled by the memory of one dire wolf assassin's silent tread through Lion's Den. And wherever fear whispered Robb's name, hope whispered too. For wolves, once roused, run not for slaughter alone, but to clear a path for spring. Gay. Cold dawn mist whirled above the tumblestone, tinting the river silver where it lapped the pebbled shore below River Run's eastern ramparts. In that hush, Robb watched gray wind pad the water's edge, paws sinking in silt that oozed like wet clay before spring's thaw. The dire wolf raised his muzzle, tasted wind that blew from the south, then let a rumble shiver through his chest. No full-throated howl, only the low, volcanic growl that meant strangers trod the veil beyond the trees. Robb's fingers tightened on the cranial lip. Riders had returned then, and with them news from every corner of a realm, reeling beneath a Shadow Wolf's legend. He descended the stair in 3 bounds and crossed the yard still cold from moonfrost. Steel rang soft on steel where Edmure drilled green recruits. Banners cinched tight to poles barely fluttered. Spring's first crocuses should have been cutting through Winterkill by now. But all Robb saw were muddy ruts gouged by siege tower wheels and carts laden with barley for horses that never stood still long enough to feed. War trampled seasons as surely as it trampled men. Near the gatehouse, 3 columned riders pushed their mounts hard, lather bright against dark chests. Spears bore Karstark devices blackened with road grime. At their head rode Harrion Karstark, leaner than when had left, eyes sunken as though road dust had scoured sleep from him. Robb met him beside the stables where stable boys sprang to unbuckle girths. Harrion swung down stiff-legged, saluted arm across breast. "Bolton's camp at Harrenhal lies in ashes," he rasped. Steel and fear burned at both. He pressed a sealed pouch into Robb's hand. Skin dried, stitched with flayed man crest, now smudged by soot. Treacherous dogs fled, those still breathing. Tywin marched inside while rebels set their own stores alight. He found no garrison worth the name. Robb slipped the cord, tilted parchments into palm. Reports scrawled in 2 scripts. One a maester's cramped order list, the other scratch of soldiers dying too fast to spell. He read swift lines. Mutiny, blades in back. Men fleeing to Dreadfort Colors or River Watch, or simply into woods thick with ghosts of dead potential. Among the names of deserters, bold letters spelled Ramsay Snow. Robb felt his cheeks flame. Ramsay loose in Riverlands meant flayed corpses would follow. Harrion drained a skin of watered wine and continued. Lannister ranks cracked when rebels loosed grey tabards painted with wolf prints. They swear your sorcery ripped open their gates. A mirthless laugh. Superstition fells riders as sure as arrows, your grace. Robb rolled the parchment, eyes flicking to grey wind, loping near. The wolf shook river droplets, sun striking fur in pewter streaks. Wraith, some called him now. A demon bound to northern will. Robb felt only the heartbeat they shared, steady as drumroll. Tywin's fury, he asked. Scalding. Harrion's lips peeled back from teeth. He ordered every hedge knight between Maidenpool and Pink Maiden to muster. Rumor says he rides for Riverrun the moment Harrenhal's back under his claw. Nand. Robb pictured the Riverlands aflame under golden banners, yet one spark of triumph glimmered. Tywin no longer in King's Landing meant the capital lay strewn with fractured command. The lion's roar had left the den. Only caged cubs yowled behind. "Where's Galbart?" Robb asked. "Behind with Sansa and the southern wagon." His route kept wide of Bolton breakout. Harrion tugged bridle off his tired roan. "We pushed north to bring word before the old lion rallies." Robb clapped his shoulder. "Feed your mounts and rest, but not over long. We ride again at sunset. Light, swift, no banners. The time has come to bleed the lion's paw each step he plants." On a makeshift dais beside River Rune's weirwood sapling, Caitlin sat reading Sansa's first full letter home. Soft candle glow warmed her face, but her eyes flicked rapid along lines, mind already shaping logistics from daughter's careful script. The scroll smelled faintly of lavender oil. Sansa had always kept such vials secreted in sewing kits, claiming the scent made her feel less afraid of stone walls. Now the fragrance seemed a whisper from the girl she once scolded for stitching crooked seams. Sansa herself knelt nearby, mending a rent in her riding cloak with quick, precise stitches Maester Luwin would have praised. She paused at times to watch Grey Wind, who circled the camp's perimeter in tireless loops as though tracing runes of protection. When she caught Catelyn's gaze, she offered a tentative smile, the hesitant curve one gives when trying to grow used to sunlight after months in cellar dark. Catelyn folded the letter. "You wrote that Joffrey has nightmares." Sansa's needles faltered. He wakes screaming that wolf eyes watch him through shutters. Cersei smothers him in brew of dream wine and opiate, yet bile still pours at dawn. She bit thread, grimace flickering. Once that would have pleased me. Now? Only dread. Every lash he orders falls harder for his fear. Catelyn reached and squeezed her hand. "We will stop his lash. But first Tywin." "Nyan so." Robb joined them. Battle maps were tucked under one arm, hair damp from the river breeze. He bent, brushed sister's brow with kiss. She closed sewing kit and rose. "We strike Lannister rearguard tonight," he said. "Arryn knows secret groves near Tumblestone Crossing. We sever Tywin's baggage line, free towns pressed into forced levy." "And force him to turn back," Catelyn murmured. "Or bleed until he can't march," Robb replied. "Either buys the North a summer." He laid out maps on bench plank. Sansa listened, though war's intricacies still sickened her. Yet this time she did not excuse herself. She needed to understand how freedom was purchased. "Blackfish commands at River Run while we range," Robb said. "Grey Wind rides with scouts. When the time comes, he leads chaos through Tywin's horse lines at dusk. Our outriders then torch wagons here, here, and here, and here." He tapped parchment. "We plant false banners bearing shrieking ravens. Let him think Bastard of Bolton haunts him. Drive his paranoia outward." Catelyn looked sharply. "You would use Bolton colors?" "Traitors' tools may serve honest hands," Robb said. "Every rumor that divides his host spares northern lives." Sansa inhaled. "Fear is a blade that cuts both holder and foe," she said softly, echoing a lesson learned beneath Cersei's smiles. Robb's eyes flicked, impressed. Night fell quick. Clouds rising black-purple over silhouetted trees. Fires doused. Armor bound in rags to mute clink. The strike force stole west. Sansa watched them ride until torches vanished. She turned to find Grey Wind seated behind her, eyes reflecting distant lantern glow. He bowed head. She reached and buried fingers in thick ruff. "Watch him well," she whispered. He licked her wrist, then spun into dark. Tywin Lannister's host crawled north along the King's Road like a gilded caterpillar chewing fields behind it. Wagons rattled beneath casks of arbor red, barrels of salt pork, crates of Myrish crossbow bolts. Iron-shod hooves churned thaw-soft earth into sludge. Men marched half asleep, lulled by steady plod and clank of chains dragging siege scorpions. Above all rippled the banner of a roaring lion stitched in gold, proud even when spattered by mud. In the command pavilion at Column's vanguard, Tywin studied 3 ravens tethered to perch. One bore Harrenhal's seal, 2 from Red Keep. His steward fumbled reading lamp as he sliced wax, offered scrolls. Tywin scanned news by lantern light. Coffers drained, restoring burned granaries. Bolton levies missing. Pycelle dead, head torn off, details unspoken. Listing losses felt like claw hatching new wounds across his self-image. He closed scrolls without comment and stepped outside. Night wind carried scents of wet pine, horse dung, something else, an acrid hint of tallow and smoke. He stared toward baggage line. Glimmers of campfires flickered in dark, but some spark flicked higher than cook flame. A single pillar of orange hissed, followed by muffled crack of wood splintering. Tywin stiffened. Across clearing torches bobbed erratic. Shouts carried. A horse screamed, high and mortal. Tywin's hand fell to sword, though old habit told him little good would come of a lone lord charging into dark confusion. He barked orders, guards sprinted for mounts. Horns bellowed muster. He glimpsed shadows leaping between wagons. Some shapes horsed, others low and fast, too sleek for men. Gray wind tore through a supply file, hamstringing pack mules. A single snap of jaws spilled entrails. The wolf disappeared again as bolts flew wide. Suddenly one of Tuin's wine wagons erupted. Flame gushed, barrel hoops snapped, wine hissing like crimson serpents on fire. Nearby carts ignited as lamp oil splashed. Smoke roiled, confusion thickening. Mercenaries stumbled about hacking silhouettes only to find straw dummies wearing Bolton cloaks slashed to ribbons. Panic rose. Greatjan Umber's thunder voice carried across chaos. Winter's teeth. Lannister rear guards looked up in time to see northern riders sweeping from pines, axes gleaming like hammered moonlight. They crashed into flank, not stopping to hold ground. They hacked horse lines, toppled wagon wheels, vanished. Harriers more than soldiers. Tywin rallied knights around him, formed shield wall across road, but by time columns turned. Attackers gone. Baggage train burned. Dozens of draft animals bled out, blocking wheels. Tywin's army would not move come dawn. He stared at the devastation, jaw muscle jumping. Somewhere in dark he thought he heard a wolf howl, distant yet near his breath. Vexation chilled into something stranger, a spark of, no, not fear, but respect, perhaps, for an enemy who understood leverage. Tywin's gaze hardened like quenched steel. Send ravens to Cersei, he told his steward. She's to seal every city gate, execute any northerner found within. I will break this wolf or hang in chains. He turned on heel, cloak swirling ash. Moon hung low and Robb's harriers melted back through hedgerows to muster point on ridge. He took head count, only one man missing, arrow in leg but alive. Others scraped. Gray wind trotted up, muzzle streaked red. Robb knelt, pressed his brow to Wolf's. You have carved our path. He fed the beast, dried venison. Hands steady, though fatigue hummed bones. Greatjon clasped Robb's forearm. Tywin's wagon train won't crawl a league for days. We cost him half his oats and all his temper. Edmure approached, grinning wide but wincing from a gash across bicep. Lord Lannister will find his war dearer than he reckoned. Robb nodded, yet eyes shifted east. This taste of fear must be turned full upon the capital now. While Tywin mends, we break King's Landing open. Stannis broods off Dragonstone still, said Greatjon. Perhaps he needs a nudge. A raven then, Robb mused. Offer him the gates if he strikes at dawn after ours. A bold gamble, sharing the kill, but war forged alliances of necessity. When Robb returned to Riverrun, sun was rising, dew silver on palisade stakes. Sansa met him within gate, posture straight though nights were short. She glanced at blood flecks on his gorget. You kept your promise, she whispered, half in awe, half in horror. It is only a beginning, Robb answered, but softened voice. Your information on Larder roads proved true. Gray wind bounded ahead to Riverside where Bran awaited arrival, rolled parchments tucked into saddlebag. The boy's face glowed. Some nights he soared through summer across Green Dream, guiding messages by raven. Now he rehearsed them aloud to Maester Vyman. Warnings to houses Mallister and Blackwood, coded offers of truce to Frey sons who might yet break their father's leash. Robb joined them. Bran, can Summer carry word to Howland Reed? Tell him Moat Cailin must ready for siege lines behind, but hold fast doors for friends. The child nodded, eyes going quartz white for heartbeat as Wolfsight brushed him. When they cleared, he sagged, smiling. Summer runs. Robb ruffled his hair. In that moment, he looked not king but elder brother. Days marched. Tywin's column crawled, skirting towns that barred doors. His letters home grew sharper. Bolton spies tried to sniff secrets but found only traps. Northern deserters Robb sent took oaths to ruse, then fed back false troop counts, false supply caches. Each lie sank Lannister deeper into miscalculation. Meanwhile, Robb shifted his entire host in small packets, stealing across rivers at night, leaving dummies by day. Tywin believed Stark force still camps Riverrun, when in truth main infantry slipped west toward Seaguard, aiming to outflank. Gray wind harassed outriders, sowed accounts of 10 wolves with burning eyes. In King's Landing, panic metastasized. Blackwater wharves rang with rumor of Stark fleet conjured from mist, carrying snow-white sails stitched with wolves' heads. Joffrey's bandaged arm festered, though Parcell's apprentices poured vinegar daily. Qyburn replaced leeches with powders smelling of death. Still the wound wept green. The king's temper turned scarcity savage. A baker's boy hanged for stale loaf. A pot girl flayed for tripping his crutch. Each cruelty fanned resentment. In gutters already raw with hunger, Cersei saw treachery in every face. She replaced Ser Marin with 2 kettleblacks at Joffrey's door, doubled guard rosters, forbade any animal larger than a lapdog within keep. But cats vanished first, throats slashed, pelts nailed to dungeon doors. A message, perhaps. None could certain say, yet whispers pinned it to Grey Wind though no wolf was seen. Men invented glimpses to sad fear. High above, in Tower of the Hand newly reassigned to Lord Mace Tyrell, young Queen Margaery traded secret letters with the Faith militant. She studied power vacuums growing like rot. The Reach might bloom once winter storms cleared, but only if lion and wolf decimated each other first. Across the bay, Davos Seaworth knelt beside Stannis Baratheon in the painted table chamber. Ravens from Robb flapped tired wings. Davos read the missive. A pact promising open gate if Stannis sailed under dawn fog when northern saboteurs unbarred Mudgate. Davos saw a trap possible, yet also rare chance. Stannis' jaw clenched. Justice warred with caution. Pride warred with strategy. He ordered ships readied in secret. In Riverrun torch glow, Bran traced corked token along map's coast. If Stannis lands here, he said, voice soft but sure, and Robb breaches by land, the city will face 2 storms, like jaws of dire wolf closing. Robb nodded though his eyes drifted to sister. Sansa poured wine for Mage Mormont, her motions precise. She seemed both older and strangely younger, battle-scar nobody could see except when her breath caught at a loud voice. Robb crossed hall, touched her wrist. When gates fall you will ride north under Maeg's guard, he said. Her eyes hardened. You mean me to flee? To survive. The south is no place for Starks come wildfire and siege. Nay, sorry you. She set pitcher down. I was hostage. I will not be baggage. She drew breath. Let me speak when city yields. I know its corridors, its lies. I can cut rumor's throat. He studied her. The brittle girl in King's Court replaced by tempered steel. Very well, he said gently. But not on walls. Not on walls, she agreed. 7 nights later, storm clouds stacked black upon black above Blackwater Rush. Lightning forked. Thunder drummed the sea. Under that cloak, Stannis galleys rode without sail, oars muffled. On deck, Davos prayed to 7 though he served one god now. Old habits linger. Behind them, fiery beacons of dragonstone burned low. Melisandre remained ashore, claiming the night's smoke already carried victory. Cross River Meadows Robb's host crouched beneath willow copses. Rain slicked helms, soaked hauberks till they stuck like second skins. Karstark horse pawed earth. Grey Wind prowled line, touching noses with mounts to settle them. Robb knelt in mud, palm pressed to the wolf's crown. Bran's voice whispered in his mind unbidden. Fear cuts deeper than swords. He exhaled. Greyjohn strode up. Mudgate's latch will break like brittle bone once your beast runs there. Soldiers inside remember whispers more than swords. Robb answered. He rose, signaled. Archers unwrapped longbows, strung with flax waxed against rain. Flint's finger spearmen tightened straps. Midnight chimed on Riverrun's brass bell far behind, though city men did not hear. Robb lifted horn carved of weirwood, blew one deep note. Crossfield Grey Wind bolted, his gray hide blurred between rushes. Ahead 2 scouts in Lannister cloaks hauled a supply cart, brimming with salted pork for gate cords. They had bribed the watch captain for silver, and promise of more. When Grey Wind bounded into Torchring, guards startled, fumbled pikes. The wolf snarled. One man stumbled, another went rigid with dread stories. Robb's scouts leapt, wrested chains, hauled crank. Gate's inner jaw opened a man's width. Enough. Gray wind slipped through. Shouts exploded, but then bows twanged outside. Northern aerostorm whistled overhead, peppering parapet. Guards ducked. More northerners surged, axes biting hinges. Mudgate yawned. Robb rode first, banner folded to keep secret still, Gretchen beside. Rain-pounded streets churned slurry round hooves. Gold cloaks startled awake. Blades scraping scabbards. Many recoiled at wolf form streaking past. Jaws bloody from first kill. Panic cascaded. Across Bay Stannis galleys slid to Wharfgate. Davos leapt first. Banner a fiery heart. Scion swirling crimson in storm gust. Pro-Baratheon dock workers lifted chains as prearranged. Two fronts converged. King's Landing met its nightmare. In Maegor's holdfast, Joffrey shrieked as bells clamored. They had not rung since Blackwater. Cersei dragged him toward Red Keep's High, sept though his weak leg buckled. Kettleblack shouted confusion. As to fight the wolf? The stag? Wildfire? Joffrey screamed for Hound, but Sandor Clegane had ridden out months before. Fear devoured authority. Sansa guided Mage Mormont and Mormont shield maidens through servants' passages up to Tower of the Hand. The storms flicker through arrow slits, cast hallways and strobe. They reached a door guarded by two Reach Knights, Tyrell men. Sansa stepped forward, hood drawn. Queen Margaery bids audience with Lady Duncan. The code phrase bought by coin and risk. The knights parted. Inside chamber, Margaery paced near window. She turned, eyes wide. Tell me the city can yet be spared. Thunder cracked. Only if gates open fully, Sansa said, heart hammering. Stark and Baratheon press both walls. You must host their flags at dawn or famine follows siege. Margaery weighed, lips pursed. She had no love for Lannister cruelties that threatened her peasant sisters. She nodded. They wrote a quick decree, forging King's signature. Joffrey's seal ring stolen earlier by handmaids sympathetic. Document named a truce with northern forces, ceding Joffrey to faith for judgment. Margaery's scribe poured wax. Sansa pressed ring. Finished. They clasped wrists. Down corridors shrieks rose. Gray wind's roar echoed. He loomed at turn, flanks smeared red. Even Mormont women stiffened, but Sansa walked to him, touched blood-wet ruff, and he settled. Take me to Robb, she said. The wolf turned, led them through labyrinth now lit by sconces, knocked askew. They passed corpses, Lannister guards, stray servants. At Septi archway Cersei's retinue barred path. Cersei herself, hair wild, dagger at throat of a trembling septa. Joffrey cowered behind, arms still bandaged, face too pale. Gray wind growled, spears wavered. Cersei's gaze moved from wolf to Sansa, flicker of venom. Traitor's daughter, she hissed. You bring this beast again. Lightning flashed, cobalt lining her mad eyes. She leveled dagger at Sansa now. Robb burst from opposite hall then. Sword gore-sheened, rain dripping from cloak. Release her. Cersei barked laughter that cracked. Another wolf? Slay me, Stark, but your sister dies first. She pressed tip to Sansa's throat, a bead of crimson. Robb froze, sword raised. Mormont shields lifted behind. Sansa felt steel kiss flesh. Yet she met Cersei's gaze not with fear but cold pity. You're finished, she whispered. Look about. In echoing halls horns sounded, Baratheon clarions. Down below Tyrell trumpets answered. Bells knelled victory. Cersei's knife trembled. She spun eyes toward Joffrey. He shook head like child lost. Her will cracked. She dropped blade, shoved Sansa away, seized son's hand, fled deeper into sept shadows towards secret passage. Guards broke too, scattering. Robb rushed, arms folding sister. Gray wind followed scent, but Robb called him back. Let them crawl. Iron bars await. They ushered hostages, septa, servants, to safety. Dawn bled across horizon as clouds parted. A blade of pink through slate. Fires guttered in alleys now under control of Stannis men. Northern forces ringed streets with discipline. On Red Keep's highest tower Stark banner unfurled. a dire wolf rampant on field of virgin snow. Beside it Stannis' fiery heart snapped. And between them, surprisingly swift, bloomed Tyrell Rose, Margaery's envoy planting sign of cooperation before bloodletting spread. The city at last lay quiet, save crackle of rain-quenched embers. 3 days after gates fell, King's Landing smelled not of smoke, but parchment. Robb presided over council in throne room, stripped of lion iconography. Stannis stood stiff, Davos at shoulder, eyes wary. Margaery sat graceful, though nerves hummed beneath silks. Sansa, in simple gray, observed. "Realm needs king," Stannis stated. "My claim by blood is unbroken." Robb answered, "Your claim lies south of Neck. North will not kneel again." The air tightened as drawstrings. Davos spoke low. "Perhaps a compact, crown for the king, independence for the north, and shared wardenship of riverlands to mend wounds." Margaery lifted a finger. "The Reach will not war over a crown already tarnished by madness. Peace and harvest outweigh titles." Sansa interjected, surprising all. "Then give both realms what they desire. Stannis crowned in south, Stark crowned in north, and a great council of lords paramount meeting each harvest to settle disputes. Dragons forged realm once, wolves and stags may balance it now." Robb glanced at her, half surprised, half proud. Stannis considered, jaw tight. Yet Davos saw sense. He leaned, whispering of ships needing grain, war needing end. At last Stannis nodded. "So long as justice be done, those who broke realm must pay." Cersei and Joffrey were found skulking cellars of White Sword Tower. They stood trial under faith militant revived by High Septon now emboldened. Evidence of horrors poured. Sansa's witness, Pycelle's records, peasants' tears. Verdict: stripping of titles, exile to a silent sept, property seized for rebuilding. Far north, ravens carried word that Lannisters sued for truce. Tywin, upon hearing son deposed, had turned host south, but desertions gutted ranks. When a letter signed by Margaery and sealed by a council of 7 paramount lords demanded he stand down, the old lion retreated to Casterly Rock behind unbreachable stone. There he stewed, sending gold to free sellswards, but Westerlands bled coin faster than miners found veins. At Strong Belwa's holdfast near Twins, Walder Frey sniffed the wind and declared loyalty to whichever side paid bridge levies. Yet with King's Road patrolled by Baratheon knights and Stark outriders, his toll lanes dried quick. Begrudgingly, he bent knee to joint council, though mutters of Red Wedding plan died half-born. Roose Bolton. Reports placed him fleeing through Dreadfort crypts. Some said his bastard Ramsay strangled him on moor after quarrel, others that ghost wolves dragged him screaming into night. Truth remained phantom. Winter, inexorable, still crept. Crops in north, thin riverlands scarred. Rebuilding would test alliances more than swords. So the new compact of Maiden Spring, as scribes later dubbed it, enumerated grain tithes, levy caps, guest right codified in royal statute, and most radical, open courts where small folk might petition lords under garrison's protection. On a frostbright morning Robb ascended Aegon's high hill not to sit iron throne but to melt its chains. In courtyard before Great Seepteeth the throne was dragged, hammer blows ringing as blacksmiths broke barbs from fused blades. Grey wind lay at his feet watching sparks spray like fireflies. When last shard fell, Robb stepped back. He did not melt throne entirely. Symbol needed memory. But he stripped cruel edges until only a plain high-back seat remained. A chair, not a sword. Stannis witnessed in solemn silence. Later, seated upon it for first counsel, he said only, "A king's seat should serve judgment, not inspire terror." Robb inclined head. Their accord sealed. For the north, Robb assumed title King of Winter beneath Hearttree at White Harbor months later. Sansa placed circlet of weirwood and sungold upon his brow. Arya returned from Bravos in time to cheer with mouthful of ale. Bran, propped by Hodor, smiled serene, knowing weirwood roots whispered disjoining across ages. Grey wind prowled ceremony but lay still when Bran approached, palm pressed to fur. In that moment all Starks, living, lost, yet to come, seemed to breathe through wolf and boy. In years ahead, bards would sing of dire wolf assassin who slid dreams through stone. Children would play at gray wind, leaping city walls. But among Stark's memory kept quieter truth. Justice forged in love, tempered in terror, and wielded with sorrow. Fear had cut deep, yes, but hope had bled richer. On first spring dawn of Robb's second year as King of Winter, snow melted enough that crocuses finally broke riverbank. Sansa knelt to spring's first bloom, brushed petals, and thought of lavender oil, of towers and cages outgrown. Behind her, Robb whistled for gray wind to chase lazy trout splash. Laughter rippled startling swans. War scars remained, but in that gentle moment the world exhaled. Still, quiet, not quite healed, yet alive. And though no bell tolled it, across woods and hills a faint reply echoed. Summer's howl, distant, welcoming, promising seasons yet to turn.